بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم ابسط علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا من حكمتك وافتح لنا فتوح العارفين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم أمين يا رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته Inshallah ta'ala, in these durus that we have ahead of us, starting with this one, we're going to be focusing on Al-Ajrumiyyah, a text very well known to majority of the students of Arabic particularly, and in the Muslim world. Remember, Al-Ajrumiyyah, صاحب هذا الكتاب or هذا المتن, his name is Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Dawood al-Sinhaji, and he's known as by Ibn Ajurrum. When he wrote this book in the 7th century, entering into the 8th century, he wrote it nearby, literally بجوار الكعبة. So while he was facing the Kaaba, some of the riwayat say تجاه الكعبة, but then he dumped it in the ocean, and he said if there will be any khair from it, Allah will bring it back to life. And if not, Allah knows best. وهكذا كان العلماء, the scholars, that's how they were. And today, we're not just reading it and studying it, we are cherishing it. And what does it do? Why do we study this Matn specifically when it comes to grammar? Because it's one of the best texts for a beginner that they can start with, so that they can just start getting into the groove of the language. اعلم, bear this in mind, if you look carefully, you will notice that الدرس الأول. Now, if we go down, العربية, العربية in specific, Arabic in specific, this is what I want you to know. العربية تنقسم إلى 12 علوم. 12 علما. There are 12 sciences for Arabic as we speak. 12 sciences for Arabic. Bear that in mind. One of them, of what we are looking at, is known as علم اللغة. Although the ulama, they give this a different name. Okay? علم اللغة. While the other one is علم النحو. علم النحو. علم النحو. And the third one that I want us to look at is علم الصرف. أيوة, علم الصرف. If you pay attention properly, you will realize that in these three ulum, specifically these three ulum, for every beginner student, they have to go through them. The other 9 is unnecessary for the time being, that you look at قروض الشعر, or maybe you look at علم القافية and also علم الإنشاء and all of those, علم القرض and the rest. If you do that, it's just gonna confuse you. And remember, these are ulum when it comes to the Arabic language for those students that have the students who have advanced, especially in our times. Today, in today's day and age, one begins with the lugha part, which some of the ulama, they literally go to the depth of saying that علم اللغة المقصود به, the science of اللغة as a language, what it means by it is, if you look at the etymology of words, the roots of words, where do they originate from? Like if you look at one of the texts written by Dr. Muhammad Khatib, if I'm not wrong, he explains that اللغة in itself, especially in Arabic, it starts with the aswat, the words that we say basically. When I say my, like for example, my, when I say yours, when I say his, when I say kitab, when I say qalam, when I say daftar, when I say maktaba, those are aswat, those are sounds that you make by using your jaw in particularly, and that which it contains, which is your lips, your tongue, and all of that. But beyond that comes in the science of as-sarf. The science of as-sarf is the science of morphology, and through that morphology, you learn how to build Abniyatul kalima, to build those words. Those aswat which you are making, you learn how to build the words in the correct form. It's like now you're trying to build a house. And the foundation of it are the words that you learn. لذلك, when you go back to some of the text of grammar, you notice that, for example, An-Nahw al-Wadih, one of the early texts that I studied myself, it starts as Al-Bustanu Jamilun, Ash-Shamsu Tali'atun, for example, like that. Those are sounds which you learn to utter as words so that you can be able to learn the language. Now, this science sounds a little bit advanced, perhaps. You might think, what's going on? Actually, it means learning vocabulary. As simple as it can be. Learning vocabulary. لذلك علم اللغة is to learn vocabulary and how you pronounce the vocabulary, especially in Arabic. Many of the students that study Arabic, what they don't pay attention to is the fact that not just do you apply the rules of Quran when it comes to the tajweed and makharij al-huruf or sifat and hada, you only apply them in the Quran. Maybe you do not need the mudud and all of the other the ghunna the ghunna and also the wuquf. You don't need all of those. Lakin when it comes to pronunciation, you need each one of them. For example, qutub, the word qutub and the word kutub, they're very close, isn't it? Lakin here I pronounce qaf, ta and ba, and the ta has a sukun, has a sakna on it. But kutub, the ta, kutub, first of all is kaf, the first letter. The second letter is ta, which has a dhamma, that more like a wow sign, like that. Kutub. So you notice the difference. So when you pronounce those words and you learn how to read them, it becomes much easier for you to, okay, now you can gather the vocabulary and then you start memorizing them. But those vocabulary would not stand or make any sense if you are not tied with the other two sciences importantly. And the most vital ones for you to start embarking into the journey of learning Arabic, and which are sarf and nahu. With if the vocabulary are not tied with these two, it becomes a huge issue. Bear that in mind. And the ulama say when it comes to studying grammar, if we come to this specifically the science of grammar, they say that المرء مخبوء تحت طي لسانه. A man is literally covered and is safeguarded, literally protected under the covers of what? Their tongue. Basically, when you tie your tongue and you're quiet, you are literally safe from. But the moment you open your mouth and people start hearing what you say, and maybe you're committing a lot of alhan mistakes, and maybe what you're saying is not salima, is not clear, and it doesn't make sense منطقيا مثلا, then people start looking at you differently. وكذلك ولذلك العلماء, what do they say? The ulama say a student of knowledge, particularly who has embarked on the journey of studying, and if you look at our times today, is extremely relevant. Many of us study fiqh, we study hadith, we study all of the other ulum, etc. You notice that these ulum, we study them in either our mother tongue or one of the international languages known as English. We study them in English. And when we study them, we believe that we have studied and we know them. But the reality is, if you can only read them in English, or maybe you're reading them in Arabic, but you're making a lot of alhan, then your ilm is not complete. Your ilm is not complete. لذلك الإمام السيوطي رحمه الله تعالى, he says that كل العلوم, every single science that you study, مفتقرة إلى علم النحو. All of them require the science of grammar, especially grammar in the Arabic language, this one that we are studying. If you do not know grammar properly, it becomes problematic for one to even understand the differences between the scholars when it comes to the other sciences. خصوصا العلوم الغايات, which is علم التفسير, and also علم الحديث, علم الفقه, and all of those. If you cannot study grammar in itself, it becomes very difficult. And one cannot cannot claim that they know the Arabic language if their grammar is not good, because Arabic does not just consist of vocabulary, it also comprises of grammar as a science itself. Now, how do you study them? How do you put them together? For a good teacher, as you learn, they do not provide you with one science per time. لا, they connect them together. لذلك when you study the vocabulary, الكلمات, and then after that you study صرف, and then with it you study grammar together. Now all of them three, they go hand in hand, and then they're broken down piece by piece and with less technicalities. لكن احفظ تقول ما شئت كما يقول العلماء. The scholars say you memorize, you would say anything you desire. Without memorization of these vocabulary and understanding them, you wouldn't be able to understand a thing. Because something that I want to bring to your attention is, I find it fascinating that many of us study, for example, even grammar, which I am saying clearly, if you're just embarking on the journey of learning Arabic, don't study grammar first. Don't study grammar first. You will never come back to learning Arabic because it will complicate you and you'll find it difficult, extremely difficult. And you'll think, why did I even why did I even have the thought of learning Arabic? Learning Arabic does not start with grammar. Like in grammar is important. That's what we're trying to make clear over here. You notice even grammar in itself, when you study it, you literally study it in the Arabic language. So you're not studying grammar, for example, if you're going to go through a Matn like this, if you see this one, this is Matn Ajrumiyyah, by the way. It's written in Arabic. It's literally written in Arabic. So do you study grammar at the beginning? No, you don't. You don't study grammar at the beginning. What do you study? You study Arabic in itself as a language. So you combine the vocabulary, then you come with the grammar that literally corrects it, gives you the correct order of how to put words together. And when you study with sarf, you are able to use the words when it's necessary. So when we look at grammar, that's when you notice why it is very important. When you look at grammar, you realize that grammar literally tells you exactly what to do at first and how to move along, and then you literally you compile all of that together, pardon me, compile all of that together so that you can be able to have a complete package as of the Arabic language itself, inshallah ta'ala. Well, Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, rahmatullahi alayh, he is the one known to have founded the science of ilm al-urud. When it comes to the ilm al-urud al-qafiya, the science of putting together or prosody, which that's what it's called in English, but learning how to write poetry, basically. He is the one that was able to break down Arabic poetry and literally put it down as a science. Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi. And remember, at his time when he would live a very, very simple life, his students were literally living a complete life through his ulum that he taught. The teachings that he left behind is what people up to now they're eating from them. He says that لا يصل أحد من النحو إلى ما يحتاج إليه إلا بما لا يحتاج إليه. One cannot reach to a level of understanding proper grammar until they study what they don't need. Basically, they study even beyond what they need. And some of the scholars even say that it's beyond that. Not just grammar, every single science that you study, everything that you do in life, actually. في كل العلوم والشؤون. You need to exceed the barriers of what you require in order for you to be at that level that you desire. It doesn't just happen by itself and you say, okay, I want this much and that's it. You actually should aspire for more. The higher you go, you realize that which you aspired for becomes much easier because you've literally crossed that bridge and now you're going to another level, which is much higher and much higher. And that's the same with everything in life. If you apply that, you become better. And when it comes to Arabic grammar itself, as a science put together in the Arabic language, the ulama say تعلموا العربية فإنها تزيد في العقل. Study Arabic because it literally increases in your intellect. It makes you clever. And remember, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, when he wanted to be better in his Arabic, and remember he was Qurashiyun, Hashimiyun. He was from the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was an Arab. He was a Quraysh. He was from the Quraysh tribe, but he still went to Banu Hudayl, to the tribe of Hudayl, to study Arabic for 18 years. 18 good years. And Imam Shafi'i went to study Arabic. And this is the grand Imam Shafi'i. He has an entire diwan that people study today. They memorize it. They even use it in the Ilqa al-Khutab for delivering sermons and beyond. Bear that in mind. And if it took him that long, then how long does it take us to just say maybe a few classes here and there is enough? لا, it's not enough. لكن you have to start somewhere. Inshallah ta'ala. So without wasting time, without further ado, we're going to enter into the subject itself. And what I want you to look at is this. Now, as you know already, ilm al-nahu is one of the 12 sciences, and ilm al-lugha and ilm al-sarf. Now there's ilm al-ishtiqaq and ilm al-urud wal-qafiyya and all of those other ones, ilm al-insha, ilm al-bayan, al-badi' wal-ma'ani, which some of them say some of the ilm al-balagha can be separate from these other 12. And that depends on the ikhtilaf al-ulama. Lakin if you look at us today, we really need each one of them together in one package, which can go beyond 12, inshallah ta'ala. But what do we need for today, bismillah? Look at this. First of all, Ibn Ajurrum in his text, فنقول على حسب أدب al-ilm, for among the etiquettes of knowledge, you first read the matn and then you start breaking it down. You first read the matn and then you start breaking it down. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى نفعنا الله به وبعلومه في الدارين. The Musannif, the author of this text, he says in his text Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, but some of the ulama, they say that the Bismillah, the Basmala, is not provided in the other texts which have been put together to bring back his works to the ummah, whereas some do have Bismillah. Lakin Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he explains clearly in his hadith, كل مبتدأ بغير اسم الله فهو أقطع. Everything that begins without the name of Allah تبارك وتعالى, then it is not going to be complete. أقطع أو أجذم and beyond. So he says الكلام هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع وأقسامه ثلاثة: اسم وفعل وحرف أو حرف جاء لمعنى. And we'll stop there for today, because we don't want to break down all of the other parts. It's going to be a bit long and it's going to be difficult to even break down. So al-kalamu, if you look at the chart over here, if you look at the chart very, very well, al-kalamu هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. That is the ta'rif, the definition of it scientifically as provided by the ulama. Al-kalamu هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. I want you to memorize that. And Ibn Ajurrum makes it clear now. Al-kalam, which is speech. Speech is made of 4 components. You need to have these 4 shurut, these 4 requirements. If you fulfill each one of them, then your speech becomes complete and it makes sense and it is usable. Otherwise, it's beneficial basically. Otherwise, it wouldn't stand a chance. So if you look carefully, al-kalamu, kalam, if we literally look at the lingual definition of it, linguistically, lughawiyun can be lafz and غير لفظ. What is lafz can be utterance, and it can be other than utterance, something which you utter with your mouth, with your mouth, and you make a sound of it, or it can be in other forms, which is writing. It can be giving, maybe demonstrating by using your head, by nodding yes or saying no, for example, or giving an expression, for example, like that. Or it can be through someone's giving you a little copy of something. With that manner, al-ishara or al-kitaba or al-khat, either one of these 3. And over here, look carefully, it can be either al-khattu, al-kitaba or al-ishara. By giving an ishara, a demonstration, showing someone, okay, no or yes, for example, like that, by nodding your head, as I said, or maybe by giving an entire letter. When you're given a letter or a book, that is another way of speaking. And al-khattu, someone can just write down a note, for example, like in today's day and age, we use messages. أليس كذلك? Now, when you use iMessages, for example, which I love to use a lot, iMessages is more convenient than WhatsApp, which WhatsApp has too much nonsense for me. Like in al-muhim, you notice that through that, it becomes much, much easier for one to pass down a message. But one of them also, it is al-lafzu, it is through utterance, by using your mouth to speak. أليس كذلك؟ لكن نحويا, if we use the grammar route, basically the scientific definition, it has to be lafzun, utterance. Other than that, we do not accept. Which means even when you read, you have to make sure that you utter what you're saying. Murakkabun, it has to be murakkab, compounded together. If I say, for example, Uthman, هذا لا يكفي. If I say Uthman, the question is Uthman what? Uthman what? Like if I say, for example, Aliyun qa'imun, Ali is standing, or he is in a position of standing. مثلا, that makes sense. أليس كذلك? Ali is standing. But if I just say qa'im, is standing, then question is who is standing, what is standing, what is it are you trying to express? So you have to have a combination of words together that make sense. Or for example, if someone asks you a question and you say na'am, which means yes, then in that case it does make sense according to the question you were asked. Basically it has to be compounded together. Mufidun, which is number 3 of what we were just explaining right now, of something making sense, it has to benefit the listener, not just the one who speaks, the speaker, the one who uttered, actually the listener, the one who is listening, the audience. It has to benefit them by understanding, oh, this is what you mean. It has to make sense. It has to have a meaning. But a meaningless sentence wouldn't make sense at all. Logically, لا يستقيم. It wouldn't stand. It doesn't make sense at all. أليس كذلك؟ وكذلك أن يكون على الوضع العربي. It has to be by the Arabic tongue, basically Arabic words. If someone is to use a language such as English or French or any other tongue that they might use, or maybe any other language, then it wouldn't know. It's not what grammar here means. It means al-wadu' al-arabi, what the Arabs spoke, what they said, what they uttered, what they used in their language. Now, does it have to be medieval Arabic? No, it doesn't have to be medieval Arabic. Can it just be even the modern standard Arabic? Yes, it can be. Because even in modern days, in modern day and age, in the modern in modern standards of standard Arabic, you notice that it might be far away from the Quran and the Sunnah. It's Arabic, and it can be, we use, as we call it, Fusha. ليس كذلك? But what you notice is it's a language spoken in Arabic. It's a language spoken in Arabic. So that's what's important. So now you understand what you utter has what Nahwa understands as language. We have to utter it, number one, and it has to be it has to have be compounded together, and number 3, it has to make sense. Number 4, it has to be Arabic as the Arabic language itself. واللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. That makes sense. أليس كذلك? So if you look at speaking, when you look at literally trying to pass down a message, it can be either way. You can pass a message by saying it, you can pass a message by writing it, you can pass a message by delivering, let's say, a letter, or maybe an entire email. It can be any of those, or it can be by ishara. You literally show, you demonstrate by, for example, or come, or for example, yes, no, ishara. That's what you do. Like beyond that, for what we are looking at specifically, or what we are looking for, is that which is uttered and that which is compounded together to have a complete sentence. And on top of that, it has to make sense, and it has to be in the Arabic language. So what does Ibn Ajurrum provide us? He provides us that in order for one to be able to embark on this journey of, or this quest of grammar, because it's a quest in itself. One thinks, okay, I will just study grammar and it's enough. La, you cannot study grammar only. He's teaching us over here. First, you need to be able to utter the words in the Arabic language. أن يكون على الوضع العربي. So understand this. He gives you the flow of how do you study Arabic. Study, first of all, vocabulary. Then after that, you have to be able to use this vocabulary, which you cannot use the vocabulary without ilm sarf, morphology. And then when you study morphology, these words, once you know how to use them, you need to put them together for them to make sense in sentences. And the only way you can do that is through grammar. So then he says, after that, if we go further now, what does he say? أقسام الكلام أقسام الكلمة وأقسامه ثلاثة, and it divides to 3. اسم, فعل, حرف. There's either the ism, and then there's the fi'l, and then there's a harf. Why did he specifically just mention 3? Because when the scholars were putting together, when the scholars were putting together, Aywa, as you can see on the board, was when the scholars were putting together the Arabic words, they بالتتبع والاستقراء, when they followed the Arabic words, they were able to gather them together and they studied how the Arabs spoke. They realized that all of the Arabic words either will fall under the ism, or it will fall, Arabic words, they will fall under the fi'l, or they will fall under the harf. Nothing other than that. Because through them, through these, there's something that we literally say, okay, but why is there so many chapters when it comes to grammar, sarf, and all of that, and this and that? Actually, it's not rocket science. It's as simple as if there is an ism known as noun, ism is known as the noun. Now, once again, Ibn Ajurumi is teaching us you need to study vocabulary to know, okay, this is a noun, to know this is a verb. How do you use the verb? How do you use the preposition? And to know there's a noun. In the noun, there is pronouns. There is pronouns. In the nouns, there is demonstrative nouns. Demo nouns. I'll just write it over here so you can see, inshallah. Demonstrative noun and beyond. Bear that in mind, and so many other ones. And when it comes to the verb, with the verb, you have verbs which are known as past. Okay, past tense. Yes, can I delete that? Past. There's also present tense verbs. There's also future. Hmm. There's future tense. This is complicating my writing. Like you understand what I'm trying to give you. And harf, they are prepositions known as, in other words, particles. Is that very clear? In other words, they are known as particles. Anyway, that makes sense. As long as you understand what I'm trying to provide, because this keeps on moving around, subhanAllah, it doesn't stop. Al-Muhim. So we have the ism known as the noun. Fi'l is known as the verb. So Arabic words are either nouns, or they are verbs, or they are prepositions, as written over here. They are either nouns, verbs, or prepositions. Nothing else. Nouns, verbs, or prepositions. The rest of the other topics that you find in the Arabic books, those are known as subtopics. And then when you're studying Arabic, you notice that you don't need all of these topics and subtopics of the sciences. As you're just embarking on the journey, what you need is to just master the vocabulary. Master the vocabulary, listen, apply them, correct them like that. And then once you understand how to use that, then that's when now you can start diving into these texts, because this of what we are learning right now is not for someone who is a beginner, in the sense that they don't know anything of Arabic at all. Perhaps some are even struggling to even read Quran, or maybe reading Arabic books. That's not whom we're targeting here. We're targeting those whom, for example, or for those who haven't even embarked on the journey, to give them a taste of what's the beauty of learning Arabic grammar. What do you get out of it? What are the doors that it opens for you? But for the one who's literally the one who has literally studied some sort of Arabic, they can speak a little bit, they can write a little bit, they can make some sense a little bit of what is given to them to read, and they can provide some sort of understanding of what they are translating. Then they can start embarking on the journey of grammar and put those together, so they can be a power tool that allows them to polish their language and move along and just compile more as they study. Remember this: Arabic, different from any other subject, it's not like hadith where you literally study and then it becomes like a huge snowball. A text of a hadith is a text on its own, and another hadith is another text of its own. One Quran وهكذا. Lakin when it comes to the Arabic language particularly, the more you study, the more it becomes like a huge snowball infused together. عندما سألت الشيخ, when I asked my sheikh, how does one become a poet in the Arabic language, that they can write poetry, they can understand poetry, decipher poetry, become a master when it comes to Nazm al-Shi'r? He explained to me there's only one secret. Your grammar has to be very good, your sarf has to be very good, your balagha has to be very good. And once you study all of these, you need to embark on a lot of poetry written, especially medieval poetry, great scholars who wrote in poetry, memorize a lot more than even 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and be able to now to decipher them. Once you reach to that level, you notice that your tongue smoothly starts developing the nature of writing poetry. Does that make sense? It starts developing the nature of writing poetry. You don't just wake up tomorrow and then you become a poet. La. You can't become a Shakespearean if you haven't even tasted Shakespeare language and you haven't studied majority of the Shakespeare works. It doesn't work that way. And when it comes to the Arabic language, the same. So it's not just about the speaking bit, it's infused together, the writing, the reading, making sense of what you are doing, having someone to guide you, hold your hand and learn throughout that journey. And then you polish your language. You polish your language every day. And then by the time you realize 1 year, 2 years down the line, after every day's work, you become better, inshallah ta'ala. Now, after studying and knowing all of that, now you know that we have the noun and the verb and the preposition. Something else that I want to conclude with, inshallah ta'ala, this dars is the verb. Because now you know that we have the noun and the verb and the preposition. In our next lesson, we're going to look beyond that. But for now, I want you to know that there's three types of verbs. The madin, pardon me, the madin, which is the past tense. Madin means past tense. And then we have the mudari', which is the present tense, and amr, which is the commanding and also future tense. لذلك, when you look at التحفة السنية, the one which I have right in front of me, I've read it a number of times. I've taught it twice as well, if I'm not wrong. I've taught it twice. Not 3 times, no, twice. This التحفة السنية, written by maybe it's a sharh, an explanation of Ajrumiyyah by Sheikh or Al-Allama Muhammad Muhyiddin Abdul Hamid rahmatullahi alayh. He died around the 14th century, somewhere around there, and which is 1393 Hijri, if I'm not wrong, 1393 Hijri, which is not Hijri, is not far from now. Al-Muhim, what you notice is that what we need to learn at the moment is Allah al-Musta'an. So for you to, what you need to look at specifically, Aywa, is that the verb is of three types. The past action, there is the present action, and there is the future action, which means it's different from the noun and the verb and the preposition. Sorry, the noun and the preposition, because it is what? Tied by time. And when you look at the noun, it is not tied by time. And when you look at the preposition, it is not tied by time, nor is it similar to noun. It stands on its own. It doesn't even become complete without those two, without the noun and the verb. It came to look for a meaning for it to be complete with the rest of the other two, the noun and the verb. That would make sense if we move along, inshallah ta'ala. Forget about these complexities at the moment. What I want you to learn is that Arabic words are either nouns or they are verbs or they are prepositions. And in order for one to even utter or maybe provide a complete Arabic sentence, and that they need to first of all utter it, especially in the grammar, in the grammar sense, according to what we learn. It needs to be uttered, it needs to be compounded, basically 2 words, 3 words, like that, and it has to make sense, meaningful, basically. Al-mufidu bil-wad'i al-arabi, by the Arabic tongue, like that. So once you've understood that, how do we know what is a noun? How do we know what is a verb? How do we know what is a preposition? And we're going to look at that, inshallah ta'ala, in our next lesson. The reason being I'm mentioning this to you is to understand that if you want to just know the differences of what is a noun, what is a verb, what is a preposition, without even studying nouns, verbs, and all of that, and vocabulary specifically, you can do that through grammar in itself. And when we do that, inshallah ta'ala, in our next lesson, we'll start looking into different texts on how you could spot out the nouns and separate them from the verbs and separate the preposition from the other two components which put together the entire Arabic speech. And when you understand that, then that's when you can now say, okay, once I know this sathi, this the surface level of, okay, this is how I differentiate between them, then the next question or curiosity that builds within you, what grammar does, is what does this mean? What does this mean? I know this is a noun, but what does it mean? I know this is a verb, what does it mean? I know this is a preposition, what does it mean? Because I know the signs of them. I can differentiate between them. And once you are capable of differentiating between them, then that's when you come to the purpose of the science of grammar, the purpose of this science itself. Because what Ibn Ajrum is trying to provide us, especially if you look at all of the grammar texts, they give you the breakdown of how do you study Arabic. You study by learning vocabulary first so that you can know the differences between each one of them. And once you've done that, then it teaches you, okay, you should be able to use these words properly. And then after that, you should be able to put them in the correct order when you're providing a sentence. And that can only be done through grammar, inshallah ta'ala. So in our next lesson, do look forward to knowing the differences between them. And then how can you spot them when you read, and what do some of them mean? Because it's not a lecture on vocabulary. In fact, it's a lecture on what? On grammar, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala make this journey prosperous for each one of us. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.